In this video documentary, we will discover more about the California ground squirrel. Let's start off with taxonomy. Phylum Chordata. Subphylum Vertebrata. Class Mammalia. Order Rodentia. Family Sciuridae. Genus Ostospermophilus. Species Spermophilus beechii. Next, we will cover anatomical features. Looking good. So what does a California ground squirrel look like? Let's put our knowledge to the test. Those are chipmunks. Not quite. Hey, that's Sandy Cheeks. Yes, the California ground squirrel. You can identify this squirrel through its brownish gray mottled fur with cream spots and flecks on its back. It has a darker color that runs from the head to the middle of the back, and its shoulders and head are a light gray color with a white underside. This squirrel has a long tail that is tapered and it's not bushy. This color helps with camouflage, and it's produced by melanophores, which are a type of pigment cell that produces and stores melanin. This is the most abundant pigment in vertebrate animals that's biosynthesized and deposited into their skin, hair, and feathers. Is dinner ready yet? Let's talk about feeding. The California ground squirrel has a very diverse diet, and they're primarily herbivorous, but they also consume insects, bird eggs, and carrion, which is the decaying flesh of animals. For this reason, we can classify them as omnivores. These animals forage on the ground and in low shrubs and trees, and they store food for inactive periods like hibernation in their burrow systems. Their diet changes with the season and location, and they are very detrimental vertebrate pests for that reason. They can eat anything ranging from seeds to nuts and grasses, so in California, they do cause a lot of damage. Let's talk about reproduction. No, we're not talking about the birds and the bees. We're talking about squirrels. California ground squirrels breed once a year and produce 1 litter per year with about 6 to 8 young. Their reproduction period starts as early as January. In warmer locations, it continues until July, but peak mating occurs from March through June, and this may vary due to locations, weather, elevation, and latitude. The gestation period is 30 days. The young are born in the burrow, and at about 6 weeks, they begin to emerge from the burrow. At 6 months, they will resemble a full-grown adult squirrel. And squirrels typically live 4 to 5 years, but the average is 1 to 2 years due to predation. Sandy cheeks may have lived in the ocean, but California ground squirrels prefer to live in open and disturbed areas like roadsides, croplands, and grazed meadows. They are able to live in almost all habitats and are very adaptable. They have a density population about 2 to 5 squirrels per acre. These squirrels are aggressive and experienced diggers that excavate in the soil near rocky areas, under trees or logs. They build elaborate systems with 6 to 20 entrances, and their tunnels can average from 35 to 138 feet in length and 3 to 7 feet in depth. Usually live on their own or in small colonies. They are territorial, but there is some overlap. So if a squirrel is in danger and it's not near its burrow, it will run into another squirrel's burrow for protection. These animals tend to keep close to their burrows to prevent predation. California ground squirrels sleep, rest, and have their young as well as store food in their burrows. During hot times of the year, squirrels will go into a period called estivation. This is a period of inactivity, and during these periods, the squirrel burrows will appear open, but it will be plugged up near their nest for protection.
Now let's get to know a little bit more about the California ground squirrel behavior. The California ground squirrel is diurnal, which means it is most active in the daytime. They often spend their time feeding, sunning, dust bathing, and grooming. They tend to live alone and are not highly territorial. They remain close to their burrow entrance in case they need to get away from predators. This limits foraging to that area. The ground squirrels communicate with each other through sounds, scent, and signals. While most squirrels travel only short distances, some have been known to move from 1 to 5 miles into new areas. Squirrels store food in their large cheeks. They may become torpid for periods of time when the food is scarce and temperatures are extreme. Winter at high elevations and late summer in hot lowland areas. Juvenile squirrels continue to forage above ground as adult squirrels hibernate. The adult ground squirrels often cache seeds and nuts in their burrows, especially in the late summer and early fall. The key to identifying the ground squirrel is an exposed, open tunnel with discarded dirt surrounding the entrance of the tunnel, generally 4 inches in diameter, and older burrows can be larger. Most burrows are within 2 to 3 feet below the surface of the ground and can occasionally reach 6 feet or further underground. Burrows can have a single tunnel or complex branching systems. They can be occupied just by one squirrel or many. They prefer open habitats with rocks, scattered trees, logs, and other ground cover. Ground squirrel scat feces is often easy to spot near burrow entrances. It varies in size and shape depending on the moisture content of the ground squirrel's diet. High moisture content results in a soft, twisted scat with tapered ends. Moist scat can also be clumped together. In areas where the moisture content of the diet is lower, scats are similar to deer pellets. They are often pointed at one end and have a dimple at the other end. Their damage is most prevalent in crops adjacent to uncultivated areas where ground squirrels are not controlled. They easily climb trees and vines and feed on the fruit and nuts from set to maturity and through harvest. If and when damage arises and management needs to take place, be sure to take proper management decisions. Make sure to monitor population and location of ground squirrel burrows.
The California ground squirrel can cause extensive damage to agricultural and urban settings. Some of the damages that the ground squirrel can cause are tunneling burrows, girdling trees, gnawing on irrigation line, chewing up any outdoor storage food, or feeding on the crop itself. Ground squirrels are the number one pest when it comes to damage relating to agricultural settings. Ground squirrels have also been known to dig up plants and feed on the leaves of the plant. The tunneling system created by the California ground squirrel causes adverse agricultural effects such as soil degradation, as well as leading a path directly to the crop itself. The California ground squirrel, as well as other rodents, are notorious for harboring harmful diseases. The California ground squirrel has been known to harbor the Black Plague disease, and it is very crucial to use personal protective equipment when handling this vertebrate pest. Fumigants are a great control method for smoking squirrels. No, not that one. Not that one either. There you go. This gas-based fumigant is called the Giant Destroyer. The Giant Destroyer is effective in low population densities. To use the Giant Destroyer, light the end of the wick and place the bomb into the tunnel. The bomb will release gas and make sure to cover the entrance of the tunnel with dirt so that no gas escapes. This is a very effective control method, however, it is very labor intensive. The Giant Destroyer is also organically certified. An alternative to the Giant Destroyer is aluminum phosphide. Aluminum phosphide is particularly effective in moist soils because the moisture in the soil activates the aluminum tablets to create a gas. That gas is extremely toxic when mixed with the stomach acid of the squirrel. Be very cautious when using fumigants as they can cause non-target damage to other species. Fumigants are most effective in the winter and spring months, and they are best used in low population densities. In regards to predators to the California ground squirrel, there are falcons, eagles, and hawks. Know that hawk. Falcons and the American kestrel are especially good hunters for the California ground squirrel. They can kill up to 520 ground squirrels per breeding season. A great pest management strategy to obtain more raptors in your area is to create a suitable environment for them by creating man-made boxes. Other predators include coyotes, bobcats, and snakes. Trapping the California ground squirrel is effective in low population densities, but it is very labor intensive. Be careful for non-target damage complications, as other animals can get caught in the traps. A complication with live trapping as well is that you need to use the use of dry ice to suffocate the squirrels, which is a pain for large areas of land. Another trapping complication is that there is a 150-yard rule, which prohibits the setting of traps within 150 yards of a permanent structure unless you are the person who owns the property or you carry a written permission from the person who owns it to trap the California ground squirrel. The only thing that's more toxic than Britney Spears' poor life decisions is zinc phosphide. Zinc phosphide is the #1 toxin used to control the California ground squirrel. It is an acute toxin, which means its effects are rapid. Anticoagulants are slower acting, which means that it takes multiple feedings for the effects to kick in. The common first-generation anticoagulants that are registered for the California ground squirrel are diafocone and chlorophone. You can also mix pre-baits with non-poison grain once feeding starts, and then switch the grain with a poison supplement, which will then kill the squirrel. A complication with this is squirrels often go back into their tunnels and die in there, so it is very hard to see the body and see if the results work. Bait stations are very common in order to supply the baits to the squirrel. For bait stations, you need to monitor frequently, clean spills, and refill until feeding stops. Elevation of the PVC pipe in a diagonal-like fashion can be used to prevent non-target damage. In order to supply toxins to the squirrel, you need recommendations from a licensed professional. This is a great control method for high population densities. In regards to control method for the California ground squirrel, my personal favorite is control by lethal firearm. Now, this might not be the best control method for all situations. If you live in an urban area or restricted area where firearms are not allowed, this is obviously not the best control method for you. Also, firearms are a very costly and time-consuming endeavor. But if you have the extra spare change and the extra time, this could be a very fun and effective way of controlling this vertebrate pest. The reason why I like to choose the smaller caliber rifles is if you take a look at that ammunition right there, it's not too big where it'll completely obliterate the pest, but it's also not too small where it won't get the job done. I believe that this is the perfect size for controlling the California ground squirrel. Now, when talking about firearms, it is important to be cautious about safety. Do not be going to shoot your squirrels up in trees, and especially do not be shooting if you hear voices coming from the distance. Be very smart when using this control method for your vertebrate pest. Tunnel destruction is a very effective way of controlling the California ground squirrel at very high population densities. For ripping, it does not respond well in all soil types. Make sure the shanks on your ripper are at least 20 inches in depth for optimal control. Deep ripping soils are appropriate in large open areas. This control method is very costly, with the cost ranging from $20 to $25 per acre, and it causes adverse environmental effects such as soil compaction. The Rodinator uses oxygen and propane to fill the tunnel and then is ignited to create a concussive force throughout the tunnel, collapsing the burrow. This control method is very effective, however, it is very expensive and impractical in large agricultural settings. The Rodinator does struggle, however, with very large, extensive tunnels. Contrary to popular belief, the Rodinator does not create a giant explosion as seen in the popular movie Caddyshack. However, when the Rodinator does go off, the squirrels inside the tunnel will receive total consciousness. A relatively new method for blocking tunnels is a slurry mixture. A slurry mixture combines water and sand so that when the water percolates through the soil, the sand is left to block the tunnel entrance. This is a very good way of controlling the California ground squirrel at high population densities, but the equipment is very expensive.